Security alerts and monitoring are not something that execs probably think about on a regular basis, nor should they really. But as we move towards a more remote workforce in which work is really done from destinations that employees desire rather than just homes that they live in, security alerting and monitoring becomes ever more important. So my name is Tony Gray from the Opinionated Security Podcast. Welcome to episode 10. Today we're going to talk about how to measure the efficiency of your security alerts and monitoring program, and then how to explain it to execs in a way that can be highly effective for them. So let's face it, 24/7 logging of security events represents a large investment of both time and money. There's really 4 questions that need to be answered for your executives regarding your monitoring program. Number 1, how is our investment overall performing? Number 2, what level of coverage and quality of alerts do we have? Number 3, what are our key gaps? And then number 4, are we getting better? Can we answer the question that we're getting better? One thing that your monitoring program will have is a ton of data. And all these can be converted into metrics and measures and nice looking slides. But does taking that detailed data from your monitoring platform, does it really answer those questions? I've seen multi-slide presentations where we just don't answer very many questions at all. It's just a data dump in essence. And that's the last thing that your execs want to see from their CISO. So while your security practitioners may fully appreciate the detail that is associated with generating high quality alerts, your executives probably aren't ready to consume that level of detail in a way that's helpful. So how do we produce a high level view of how security alerts are created? Well, what if we could describe the process at an easy level of abstraction that really rises above the detail of any specific logging? That might be a good place to start. It can also help us to refine a classification around the data so that we can show executives measurements and progress in the direction that we want to head. Let's also quickly outline a basic maturity model for the processing of log sources. This way, we have at least some Kentucky windage rough classification of what makes each step in the process high quality or lower quality, and points to places that we might want to mature. So you'll see in this classification, in the 3 rows, we have our each step in the journey that moves us from log source to alert, and then some qualifiers or criteria for what makes something green, what makes something yellow, what makes something red. Again, in my organization, this is just fully intended to be something that we consider and think about. It's not intended to be some exact quantitative criteria. What we're trying to do is point to areas of monitoring that we know that we want to improve, and what in other areas that we know that we feel comfortable at least saying that at this moment in time we have what we need. So what would be some of the classifications that might be important for executives to understand? So we could actually classify by the process itself. We could look at how log sources are ingested. We could look at the event data from ingested log sources and how they're indexed. So perhaps one method of communicating to executives is the effectiveness of the path that gets us from log source to high quality alert. The event data from those ingested log sources is indexed, and then the alerts are written based on that. The alerts are written based on that ingested data. That's really it. So if we were to, in one view, track that process, and then also be able to show where we are doing that well in terms of log sources and where we have gaps, So from those classifications, this program level view now gives us a tool that can spark conversations with executives that aren't focused on the nitty-gritty details of security monitoring. We can give a view of how well we're working through this process of ingesting the logs, indexing the logs, and getting to high quality alerts. If you've watched any of my other KPI and measures videos, you'll know that I like to take these measures and compare them to historical data. So we can take two views and be able to see the progress of how we're doing over time, which is a critical question that execs and board members like to have answered from their CISO. So in the example we're seeing here, clearly the progress is measurable in a way that provides value. We went from, we moved 3 reds to green, 1 red to yellow, and 6 yellows to green. The program view also indicates where future work is needed and we can have discussions around how we plan to program that into a work plan. So while this may be a good program view, what we're still missing here is a way to capture the quality of the alerts that are being generated. So let's look at what we might measure in terms of key performance indicators for any given monitoring program. The first would be the number of security events that are monitored every 24 hours. We might also look at the amount of data that's stored on a monthly basis. This would be useful for estimating what our costs are related to monitoring. We might look at the number of custom alerts that we've written. We might also look at the total number of alerts that we have, and not just a top line number, but also broken down by, say, custom ransomware alerts that are generated specifically to detect the most recent indicators of compromise. For instance, in my organization, we wrote a number of custom alerts, not just for ransomware, but also for log4j indicators. So after we put controls in place, we continue to monitor for indicators of compromise so that we could understand if our controls were being effective or not. And then it's also important to understand that and communicate what alerts actually were successful in identifying incidents. This is really where you can prove the value of the investment in the monitoring program by the quality of alerts that have actually found things in time for you to stop incidents from occurring. So as you begin to mature your coverage, you might be able to communicate the source of your incidents. And if the data shows that the security alerts are being sourced from log sources that were the result of increased coverage, and the purposeful movement in the direction of maturity, now we have a much more complete and comprehensive view of our monitoring program specific to security alerts. Something that shows you can generate value from this investment in order to gain more future support for investment in your logging program. The higher level of presentation that you give, the more you can simply trim your list of log sources to the ones that are most important to that set of executives or board members that you are presenting to. For instance, if you have an initiative around mobile applications and you're talking about the security of mobile, now perhaps you can highlight log sources around mobile, or perhaps consolidate a number of log sources in order to give a single view. You can also include any detailed information about the review process, log source issues, or other data in the voiceover as part of the slide that you're presenting. As you continue to mature, you may begin to communicate the source of most of your incident indicators. This would be particularly valuable if the data shows that they're being sourced from log sources that were the result of increased coverage, from the investment in increased coverage. Well, that's it for today. Hopefully you have better understanding of how to communicate a program view and key performance indicators for your monitoring program. Please subscribe, as this tells me that the time and investment that I'm making in these videos is worthwhile. So thank you. Subscribe.